Means District 9 City Councilor. Today is Friday, May 3rd. We are here with our friends from both the Veterans Affairs Department and the Elderly Commission as pertaining to dockets 0622 through 0625, orders for the fiscal year 20 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations, annual appropriation for the school department, appropriation for other post-employment benefits, and appropriation for certain transportation and public realm improvements, as well as dockets 0626 through 0628, capital budget appropriations, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. I'd like to remind folks this is a public hearing, both being broadcast live and recorded on Comcast Channel 8, RCN 82, Verizon 1964, and streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV. I'd ask folks in the chamber to silence their electronic devices. We will take public testimony at various points throughout the hearing. You can provide public testimony in several ways. First would be come to the hearing and present your testimony live. There is a sign-in sheet to my left by the front door. We ask that you fill out your name, residence, any affiliation, and mark the box yes if you wish to testify. We are having approximately 34 hearings over roughly a 6-week period. And we strongly encourage residents, whether here in the chamber or at home, to take a moment to engage in this process. You can also come to a hearing on June 4th between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. We will be here at least for that time frame, and we'll stay as long as we need to hear from everyone who would like to speak on the budget. We also would take testimony by mail. Committee on Ways and Means, City Council, 5th floor, Boston City Hall, Boston, Mass. 02201, as well as emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. I am joined today by my colleagues in order of their arrival. My friend from South Boston, Councilor Ed Flynn. To my right, my good friend from Dorchester, at-large City Councilor Nisa Sabi George. And to my far left, my friend from Jamaica Plain, City Councilor Matt O'Malley. We're going to start with Veterans Affairs first, and just welcome our very new Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Robert Santiago. Welcome.
Chair Siono, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Sabi George, and Councilor O'Malley. Thank you very much for this opportunity and having us here today. With me to my left is Bella Giamboso, who is our Director of Operations and our Senior Budget Analyst, and she's the one who keeps me out of trouble. The mission of the Mayor's Office of Veteran Services is to facilitate full and equal participation in all aspects of life by veterans here in the City of Boston. Our office recognizes and engages with veterans and their families, advocates for assistance in their time of need, and connects them with services and resources that they have all earned. Our primary function is to assist Boston's low-income veterans and their families, as well as veterans experiencing homelessness. The Financial Assistance Program, known as Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 115, acts as a source of income for homeless and at-risk veterans. These benefits also include military burial assistance, subsidies for medical expenses, and decoration of veterans' graves and hero squares for Memorial Day, which is this month. We work very closely with other departments within the Health and Human Services Cabinet, the Department of Neighborhood Development, and the VA. We also partner with other city, state, nonprofit, and private agencies to end veteran homelessness. This partnership, called Home for the Braves, is an initiative started by Mayor Walsh that has housed 915 veterans and ended chronic homelessness among veterans here in the City of Boston. We continue to work to ensure all veterans who are experiencing homelessness have a path to permanent housing and also preventing veterans from becoming homeless. Our signature program is Operation Thank a Veteran. This is one of Mayor Walsh's favorite programs because it brings the services and resources to our veterans' doorstep. Through this program, we engage our veterans and their families with a focus on our most vulnerable and hard-to-reach residents. We provide a means to identify the needs of each veteran and their families to better advocate on their behalf and to ensure that the way in which we serve the veterans of Boston remains effective and efficient. So how does Operation Thank a Vet work? Operation Thank a Vet is volunteer-driven. Without our volunteers, OTAV could not happen. Operation Thank a Vet runs from March through November. Last month's event was in Dorchester, and our next one will be in Charlestown on June 15th. A group of volunteers, normally 2 to 3, will go out into the neighborhood with a list of veterans. These volunteers knock on a veteran's door, and if they make contact, they thank them for their service as they are handed a challenge coin. The veteran is then handed a package which contains information of services and resources that they and their families have earned. This packet, which is hand-delivered, is followed up with a phone call, and the veteran is offered a home visit as an opportunity to talk in depth about how the city can best support their needs. If they are not home, we place a "Sorry We Missed You" sticker on their door with our contact information. There are also many heartwarming stories that come out of Operation Thank a Vet. I could tell you that when Operation Thank a Vet started back in 2015, there were a lot of veterans, in particular Vietnam-era veterans, that were never thanked for their service. This was their first time that they were thanked for their service, and they were very emotional, some of them crying, some of them inviting the volunteers into their house to talk about their experiences. One that I like to talk about that happened to me last year was a 95-year-old Marine veteran in West Roxbury. She invited us into her house, showed us her uniform, and also her husband's uniform and medals. He also was in the United States Navy during World War II. She would not let us leave her house until she played and sang the Marine Corps hymn, not once, but twice.
Wow.
We are working with Do It to showcase these stories and share them with the community through our website. Another great program we have is our African American Appreciation Brunch that we hold every February. This year was our 3rd annual brunch. For the first 2 years, we held it at the William E. Carter American Legion Post. However, we outgrew that space. So we went to the ABC Thelma D. Burns building to hold ours this year. This brunch is a great opportunity to celebrate and honor the contributions and sacrifices of African American veterans in helping to create and add to our great nation's legacy. One of the honorees this year was the Massachusetts 54th Volunteer Regiment Reenactors Company, a group of dedicated volunteers comprised of both professional and amateur historians dedicated to preserving the history of the 54th Massachusetts Voluntary Infantry Regiment and the black soldiers of the Civil War. Last year, as a new initiative, we started holding town halls. This year's town halls will focus on LGBTQ veterans and Latinx veterans. These veterans speak about what her or his service means to them through a story, summary of service, message, letter home, or an excerpt from a journal. Everyone is encouraged to attend these Veterans Town Hall. It also gives veterans a chance to address their community directly without intermediaries. The LGBTQ Town Hall will be on June 13th. Location is still yet to be determined. And the Latinx Town Hall will be on October 10th, also the location to be determined. If you want more information about these programs, you can visit our website at www.boston.gov/veterans. We also host a Welcome Home breakfast every year. This gives us an opportunity to welcome home our veterans from all eras. This year's event took place on March 21st at UMass Boston. We maintain great partnership with our Veteran Services Office throughout the state as well. Many of our veterans are transient and jump from city to city. We maintain close communications to ensure the veteran is taken care of no matter what town or city they relocate to. As successful as our programs and outreach has been, there is always room to expand. There are many different ways I plan on expanding our outreach and promoting the Mayor's Office of Veteran Services. We are also working with the Do It team to find creative ways to advertise our services and events through social media and other platforms. I believe an effective way is to go into the communities and meet with our neighbors and educate them on our services and resources. I plan to attend post-meetings and community meetings. I will be reaching out to our younger veterans as well in colleges and universities, and also going to senior centers in partnership with the H. Strong Commission. I would like to bring back the Veterans Advisory Council. This group will create and increase engagement and collaboration and strengthen communication among veterans and their families across all neighborhoods and diverse populations in Boston. They will advise me on all matters concerning veterans. The Veterans Advisory Council is a major part of how I became involved with Boston veterans community. Before the council, I didn't even know that this office existed. This weekend, I'm traveling to New York City And before I return on Monday, I will be meeting with Commissioner Laurie Sutton of the New York City's Department of Veteran Services. What we're going to do, we're going to discuss best practices, programs, and events. But I also am going to discuss with her about their Veterans Advisory Board. And I also hope to continue to extend the network with other cities as well. I would like to also recognize the staff at the Mayor's Office of Veteran Services. There is no way that I could do this work alone, and I cannot be any prouder of the staff that we have and how hard they work and tirelessly they work in taking care of our city's veterans. And I also look forward to continue working with the council in my new role as Commissioner of Veteran Services. Again, councilors, Chair Siomo, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Isabi George, and Councilor O'Malley, thank you for having us here today. Oh, and Councilor Janey, thank you for having us here today.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and thank you for all the great work that your department does. And let me recognize that Kim Janey has joined us as well, and I'm going to defer to our veteran on the City Council, Councilor Ed Flynn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Commissioner Santiago. I think your recent selection, appointment as Commissioner was an outstanding selection. You've worked hard. You know the veterans' issues. You listen to people. You're concerned about our military families, and we're proud that you were selected as the Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
And Commissioner, some of the highlights you mentioned, what really hit me the most was, your appreciation for the staff that you have that works with you, because a lot of this work couldn't be done without your staff. I see them at Operation Thank events frequently, and they're very professional, very knowledgeable, and they're great at one-on-one and helping our veterans. But give us a rundown about Operation Thank Vet. Why is it important, and what type of outreach are you doing, and what type of follow-up are you doing as well?
Well, Operation Thank Vet is very important, like I mentioned in my remarks, is our way of reaching the veterans themselves, going to their doorstep, talking to them, thanking them for their service, and also giving them, I actually have a copy of one of the folders that we have here of all the information that we give them. It has a nice little letter from the mayor and also a whole bunch of resources. You can see here there's a food resource guide. There's also BCYF locations and something from disabilities in here as well, and H Strong. It gives them the information that they need of the resources and services that are provided by the city, and also a lot of our collaborators, like the VA. It also is a way for us to find out if there's anything that they need from us, which if they're being taken care of as well. One of the things that we do in our second touch, we actually give them, we call them and just to follow up with them to see how they're doing, and then to see if in the third touch they would like us to make a visit with them to see what other services they may need. Even if to sign them up for SNAP. If they need any SNAP benefits, then we could go there, help assist them in applying for SNAP, or also assisting them in applying for Chapter 115. So it's very important for us to reach all our veterans, even those that may not need the services, but we want to let them know that we're there for them in case they do need anything, or if they want to get involved in any of our events that we have for veteran services.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I know the mayor has highlighted the tremendous work of his administration on working to end chronic homelessness with our veterans. Right in Councilor Siomo's district is Brighton Marine, housing for veterans. There is Patriot Home in my community. Just outside of Lydia Edwards' district is the Chelsea Soldiers Home. But those types of programs are excellent. They're providing great services, great housing opportunities. What else can we do in terms of providing more housing options for our veterans? I know New England Center for Homeless Veterans does an incredible job as well. But what else can we do?
Well, the partnership is very important. Just to highlight something about Bright Marine, They're actually building 102 units on their property for veterans preferences, and it's going to be through a three-tier lottery. And on that, at Bright Marine, they're also building another 25 units that'll be the HUD-VASH vouchers, which is going to come with supported services for our veterans. So maintaining those partnerships it's really, really, really important, and so that way that we know that they also offer our veterans housing. One of the things that I think we talked about at the last hearing on veterans homelessness is talking to landlords and educating them as to why they should allow a veteran to come in, because there seems to be some stigma attached to veterans when with landlords. So maybe educating them and the programs that are afforded to them as well, and with the vouchers, with the HUD-VASH vouchers, for example, and the SSVS vouchers, and I think that would go a long way in assisting veterans and getting them housed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, well, I'll wait till ask further questions until my colleagues have a chance to ask questions as well. Again, thank you, Commissioner Santiago.
Thanks, Councilor Flynn. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Commissioner Santiago, it's great to call you that, and congratulations again. And Ms. Giambusso, congratulations as well. You've got a great team in place there. Which neighborhood has the highest percentage of veterans?
Dorchester.
Dorchester. Oh, I guess because it's the biggest neighborhood. I guess, yeah, that would make sense. And I know, has Thankavet touched every neighborhood now? And are you starting?
We actually have.
Okay, great.
But we see more as a marathon as opposed to a sprint. There's always a veteran that we haven't touched in all neighborhoods. We actually, last month, like I said, we did it in Dorchester neighborhood, and it was one of our best Operation Thankavets. Each team that went out actually came back and touched at least 8 to 10 veterans. That's
great.
Which is a great number. Let's see here. Actually, this is good. I could actually give you a rundown of neighborhoods here.
Terrific.
Let's see here. So I can't really see. All right, so we have, so it's Dorchester has the highest number, and then is downtown Back Bay, followed by West Roxbury. And then it tears down to Jamaica Plain, Hyde Park, Roslindale is pretty even. And Brighton also has a good number of veterans in that neighborhood as well. The lowest number of veterans is in Alston neighborhood of Boston.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about outreach that we've done with veteran-owned businesses in terms of city contracts and ways to sort of grow that number?
Sure. I've actually been working with, starting to work with Natalie from the Small Business Entrepreneurship. She's going to be holding a series of workshops that's also involving our office. We're going to bring in some veteran-centric organizations that, like Edge for Vets and Veteran, I think this is their acronym, but we're beginning that process right now of working with Natalie and her team to bring in and work with veteran businesses.
Great, that's great. And I see that the line item is pretty level, a very slight increase, about a $10,000 increase, or I guess it's $14,000. Is that just, I assume, step raises and step increases for your team?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Similarly, contracted services are down slightly, about $2,700. Is that just?
So that's actually, so we're getting VetraSpec, and he might be able to touch base on that, but those are new memberships for 6 employees that will be using VetraSpec.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
VetraSpec is a software. One of the things that we're going to start doing in our office is filling out veterans' claims for the VA for disabilities, compensation. We haven't done that in the past, so I've been working with the state's Department of Veteran Services for us to start that process of doing the claims. We have it budgeted now for FY20, like Bella has said, for us to get 6 licenses for the software called VetraSpec, so that way we'd be able to plug in all the information and get those claims filled out and sent over to the state for processing.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's all I have for now. This is the Commissioner's first week on the job. He was officially named on Monday. He's someone I've known the Commissioner's family for years, and it's just a wonderful addition. He's worked with honor and distinction for the city, for the Veterans Department for many, many years, and we're glad to see you at the helm, Commissioner. Congratulations, and thank you to your team. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we've been since joined by Councilor Andrea Campbell. Chair recognizes Councilor Kim Janey.
Chair. And first, I just want to thank my good friend and colleague, Councilor Flynn, not only for his service to our country, but for his leadership on all issues relating to vets. I would like to understand more what the city is doing to help support small businesses owned by veterans.
Like I said a few seconds ago, I'm actually beginning to work with the Small Business Entrepreneur Office to see what we could do. So it's a work in progress. I will keep you abreast as to what we're doing.
Thank you. And
let
I
you
know it's only been a week. Congratulations
Thank you,
on your
thank
week. Ed and I just celebrated 16 months on the council on Wednesday, so congratulations there. I look forward to hearing, however I can be helpful
Yes, ma'am.
as the chair of small business. I'd love to partner with Ed on some of that work. In terms of housing, what about housing for our vets?
Well,
Is there any dedicated housing for vets or no?
there actually is dedicated housing
Okay.
through the New England Center and Home for Veterans, just on Court Street, 17 Court Street. They actually do have some permanent housing in there. They're more of a transitional housing center, but they do have some permanent housing in there, and they're looking to actually purchase property to do more housing, if I remember correctly from talking to Andy McCauley over there. Brighton Marine in Brighton, they're building 102 units for veterans that is going to be is going to be lottery based in a 3-tier system, and on that property as well, they're building another 25 additional housing, which is going to come with supportive services through the HUD-VASH voucher program.
Yes, thank you. And what about our seniors? Is there dedicated housing in the city of Boston for our senior communities? I know there are senior buildings, but are there any that the city owns and manages or is planning to build?
So the city invests in senior housing, and so especially through the CPA, some of the money that was just given out through the CPA invests money in 3 different senior developments, but certainly through D&D we invest in a lot of senior housing. We'd like to see even more created in the city, so we're working towards that with D&D.
Yep. I've been hearing from some in the LGBTQ community who are more seasoned residents, and they are looking for some dedicated housing for seniors in that community. Is that something that you're working on as well?
Yeah, so I know people are very, very interested in that, and LGBT-friendly housing for seniors is now available in a number of cities across the country, and we'd love to see one here in Boston as well.
Wonderful. I'd love to see that as well. I think I'll hold the rest for later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Campbell.
Councilor Siomo, and congratulations on the appointment, definitely well-deserved. I don't necessarily have questions in this round. I can wait for the next round, but and the next topic.
Right.
But just excited for the appointment, well-deserved, and look forward to working in partnership. And, of course, with Councilor Flynn on our side, who chairs our Committee on City Neighborhood Services, Veterans, and Military Affairs. So excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo.
Councilor Cyber George.
Thank you. I apologize for stepping out and missing my turn, but here we are. And congratulations again, if I could echo the sentiments of my colleagues here. My work on the Committee with Homelessness, Mental Health, and Recovery, I have an interest in how we're supporting our veterans who are experiencing homelessness. I know that I think this was certainly discussed in length at a separate hearing chaired by Councilor Flynn, but I just wonder if you can give me some of the high numbers of veterans experiencing homelessness, what those numbers are today.
Sure.
Or
Let
about
me
today.
look through here. Looking at I'm glad I actually bought this with me. As I mentioned earlier, City of Boston, we have housed 915 homeless veterans and ended chronic homelessness. We've significantly reduced the number of homeless veterans in Boston on a single night by 355% since 2014, and by 42% over the past 10 years. More than 2/3 of veterans currently homeless in Boston are in a transitional program, such as the New England Center and Home for Veterans. And they also provide short-term housing and supportive services while they work towards getting permanent housing. Those are some, at the end of there was a 25-city initiative to end homelessness amongst veterans, which Mayor Walsh answered the call, and it was First Lady Michelle Obama's Mayor's Challenge to End Veteran Homelessness. So in 2014, that's when the Mayor Walsh joined, and at the end of the 25-city initiative, we were certified by the federal government as having ended chronic homelessness among veterans.
Right.
We also made substantial strides towards ending homelessness amongst all veterans in Boston. One of the things that we do, we identify all veterans experiencing homelessness in the city, state, federal, and nonprofit agencies. We actually meet weekly, and we also meet monthly for the Homes for the Brave leadership team over at D&D, with Chief Dillon's team. And we also provide the capacity to help all veterans quickly find permanent housing through that partnership, through the Home for the Braves, and the capacity to assist any further veterans who become homeless or are at risk of homelessness.
Great, thank you. And I know through this budget process that we're going through, D&D is looking to fund 4 homeless peer navigators.
Yes.
Do you know if any one of those navigators will be specifically trained in providing supports for veterans experiencing homelessness?
I would have to get back with you with that,
I think
Councilor.
that would be a
Yes.
really sort of good category to make sure that we're focused, or at least you've been able to train or support those peer navigators with housing search on the other end. And then through D&D and these questions, I think Chief Dillon will be able to answer them in more detail, but there is an investment that the mayor's made in ending chronic youth homelessness as well as other homelessness. And I'm hopeful that some of the supportive units through that funding will also support veterans experiencing homelessness too. So I think through some of this work, you're no doubt connected to. I think it's just important to reinforce that work. And then lastly, as part of fiscal year 19 spending, there was some work around funeral and burial expenses for our veterans in the city of Boston. Can you talk a little bit about that spending and what we anticipate that for FY20?
Sure. The burial expenses that we have is through Chapter 115 and through the BRAVE Act that was signed by the governor last year. Actually raised the funding for the burial expenses for our veterans from $3,000 to $4,000. So that's why you will see an uptick on the number of burial expenses that we've had. So far this fiscal year, we've reimbursed 26 burials at a cost of $65,202. And that number is, again, going to go up.
So is that 100% reimbursement through the state?
No, it's 75% reimbursement through the
And
state.
then we cover the rest as the city or the family does?
Well, actually, what normally happens is we don't go through the family. The funeral home actually contacts us, and then at that point, we fill out the paperwork as provided from the funeral home to the state. And then the state will come back with the approval. We fund it, and we get reimbursed from the state 75% of the $4,000.
And
So
then
we don't really deal with the family, it's the funeral home. So if there's anything additional to that, then I would assume it is paid by the family.
And so we're paying that 25% that remains?
That's correct, yes.
And do we have a budgeted amount for FY20 and what we're putting in reserves for that spending?
So that comes out of the 545 line, which is the Aid to Veterans line.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner, could you just clarify for the viewing audience what you mean by the three-tiered system?
The three-tier system for the 102 units at Bryant Marine is going to be based on your income level.
Right.
So it's so depending on what your income is, it'll depend which tier
Low,
you'll
medium,
be in.
kind of low income, medium
Yes, sir.
income, high income.
Yes,
And
sir.
then you mentioned the 25 units, kind of a case management model with support services.
Yeah, I think it's Bryant Marine is partnering with Soldier On, I believe, and I believe is that organization that's going to be providing the supportive services for the veterans who will be housed in those 25 units.
And are we able to provide a Boston preference as well?
With the 102 units, I believe there is a Boston preference.
Great.
No, I don't believe, I know that there is.
Right.
There's a certain
I'm
percentage
hoping so.
that there is.
I know you can't do neighborhood preferences if you receive federal funding of any kind.
I could definitely forward you more information on
Yeah,
the,
sure.
on that, on,
Well, and what I would, hope happens is when they start marketing them for rental, that, we reach out to our 22,000 somewhat veterans in the city of Boston just to make sure that they're aware of it and we get as many Boston veterans to apply for these opportunities. I have a few friends that are in that situation that certainly are waiting for that process to start, so.
Right. Yeah, the lottery actually starts next month in June.
Right.
And I believe in August, they're gonna start selecting the veterans.
Great, okay, that's great to know. Thank you. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo, and maybe a comment and a final question to the Commissioner. First, I want to say thank you, Commissioner. You attended and participated in 2 City Council hearings recently on homeless veterans and the impact a federal government shutdown would have on our veterans community and our military families, and you provide exceptional insight on those 2 issues, along with Tom Lyons and Coleman Nee as well. So I want to say thank you, Commissioner, for your testimony previously. The other issue that I know we've talked about in the past is women veterans, the incredible role women veterans have played in our city and in our country, and oftentimes not getting the recognition or credit. But what they also want is, we're starting to see it now, but the VA is designating certain gender-specific care at the VA, so it's more friendlier and welcoming to our women veterans, making sure that they have the quality health care that they've earned. So I know that's something that you're focused on as well. And finally, Commissioner, I had the opportunity to be with you last summer during the town hall at the South Boston waterfront on welcoming our LGBT veterans as well. I know you're having another one. When I first started in the military in '86, gay and lesbians could not serve. I was in the military like you when under Bill Clinton, during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then I actually stayed in when gay and lesbian could serve openly. So we saw the military change. We also saw society change. So you providing a workshop such as that is incredible to the veterans that really served our country, and maybe they don't have the services or they're receiving the services. Some of them were discharged because they were gay and lesbian, which makes them ineligible for certain VA benefits. I know Harvard Law School has a program to try to help veterans reconsider their discharge. But have you focused on, I know you focused on it, but what are your thoughts about maybe working closely with Harvard Law School or some of these great attorneys around Boston to assist a veteran that may have been discharged without an honorable discharge?
We actually do work closely with them. As a matter of fact, we, in partnership with Harvard Legal, we're working on a calculator for Chapter 115 that right now we're beginning to pilot at the different expos and events that we're going to. We also work with Veteran Legal Services as well in helping our veterans who were discharged because they were gay or lesbian, and assisting them get their discharges upgraded to an honorable. So it's an ongoing process, and it's an ongoing partnership with them as well in taking care of our veterans.
Well, thank you, Robert, and please know that the City Council is here for you and for your team, and we're here to help on any issue impacting veterans and military families, and we're proud of your service, and we're proud that you're the new Commissioner of Veteran Services.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two brief questions. One, I want to take advantage of having both panels up. Has there been any talk, or perhaps this is a way that the councilors, particularly the district councilors, can help you, a great partnership between Veteran Services and Age Strong? We have a lot of elderly service members, vets. I'm thinking particularly in West Roxbury, where a quarter of the population are senior citizens, who may not know what services are offered to them. I'm thinking of my chief of staff, Bill McGregor's dad, served honorably in Vietnam, and because of Bill's advocacy, he was able to get better services for his dad, who active vet during the Vietnam era. Is there ever a way that we could maybe help coordinate some district office hours between Age Strong and Veterans Affairs to just sort of explain some of the opportunities and supports for some of our veterans that may not know, that may not have access to the internet, may not be able to come in town? Has there been any conversations of that?
Well, I've been talking to one of your staff about going to the senior centers, and one of the things that I've been doing here is when we go recognize the veterans that are in the senior centers and give them a nice letter of appreciation, but I also talk and discuss about the services that we offer at Veteran Services. But definitely a partnership with Age Strong is in the works, so we could do that. Because one of the things that I was thinking about is doing just that, going to all the senior centers along with Age Strong, and go over what both of our departments have to offer for our veterans, as well as the rest of the center for youth. And connecting that with Operation Thank a Vet during the winter months as well.
Absolutely. And maybe this is a nice time to do it with your appointment, Commissioner. I'd be happy to, there's no shortage, while we don't have a senior center yet in West Roxbury or Jamaica Plain, there's no shortage of social clubs, bingo, dates, stuff like that we can, so maybe the three of us, and I'm sure my other district councilors love to do the same thing to help do that. And then on that point, I don't know this for a fact, but I would have to believe that I represent the only city council district in America that has 2 VA hospitals. How has been your relationship with both the West Roxbury and the Jamaica Plain VAs, and how is the federal government doing, making sure the support and financing and funding's there to offer quality health care to our vets?
The partnership that we have with the VAs is outstanding. It's an open doors, open communication. I actually worked at the VA in Jamaica Plain for 9 years before I came to work for the city. Director Ng, actually, I met with him a couple of weeks ago with David Hinka, who's his outreach person over there, talking about some more collaborative things that we could do better together.
Good.
And I just got to say that the VA system here, or Visit One system here in Boston, is also the best in the country.
Really?
There are actually veterans that travel from certain other states in the country to get their care up in our VA system, and that's because of their collaboration, not just with us, but with Mass General, with Harvard, with BU. So our veterans are getting very good care here in the Boston system. Is it perfect? It's never going to be perfect, but I could tell you that they're getting the best care than anywhere else in the country.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I have a 92-year-old uncle that still goes to the VA, and you hear the horror stories across the nation, but he gets tremendous care out of the local, the ones that Matt mentioned in his district. So I'm really proud of the fact that we take care of our vets both medically, and we have our own department to help bridge those and bring those services to them. So I want to thank you again. Thank you for your testimony today, Robert Bella. And we're going to just kind of shift gears and focus on elderly. You're welcome to stay stay. Okay. Once again, we're going to shift to the Elderly Commission. Want to welcome Emily Shea and Francis Thomas. Francis, good to see you. Long time. Okay. You have your opening statement. Sure.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Chairman Siomo and other members of the council, Counselor Asabi George and Counselor O'Malley. And thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I know we were here about 6 years ago for a budget hearing, and I'm really thrilled to be back and happy to give you an update on our funding, our programs, and to answer any of your questions. So we're really grateful for the support and the partnership of the council. And just to Counselor Siomo, I know this is your last year here, you're stepping down. You've been a great friend and partner to me since my very first job here
thanks,
in
Em.
Boston, and thank you for that. I also want to thank Francis Thomas, our Deputy Commissioner of Finance, who flew back into town from Sierra Leone yesterday. And is back in the office today, and I'm very, very grateful that all the flights worked. So in Boston, older adults are one of our fastest growing populations. The American Community Survey estimates that in 2017, there were 105,000 people over the age of 60 in Boston, compared to 88,000 people over 60 in just 2010. While much of the growth in older adults is aging baby boomers, over 10,000 of our residents in Boston are over the age of 85. Serving this broad age range, essentially people aged 55 to 105, requires planning, programs, service provision, and education for multiple generations and needs. At the Age Strong Commission, we have a budget of $11.6 million. That's what is requested for 2020. About $4 million of this comes from city operating budget. $7.6 million of our budget is made up of external funds from both federal and state governments. One of our responsibilities as Boston's Area Agency on Aging is to distribute Older Americans Act dollars into the community. We use $5.3 million of our external funds to support the work of 23 community organizations making up the Aging Services Network in Boston. These agencies provide legal services, caregiver services, Meals on Wheels, and free congregate dining sites in Boston, recreation, exercise, translation, interpretation, and much, much more in a very culturally competent way, and we couldn't do our work without them. We use an additional $275,000 of our dollars to pay for tax-exempt stipends, meals, and travel reimbursement for over 300 volunteers who together contribute over 83,000 hours of service across Boston every year. The remainder of our funds we keep internally to support the work of 76 dedicated, diverse team members. Our team provides constituent services, including advocacy, assistance with benefits applications and Medicare, help navigating city services and aging services, and housing information and assistance. We provide volunteer programs for people over the age of 55, large and small events, and I know we've seen you at some of those, and healthy aging programming, transportation including the Age Strong Shuttle, and distribution of taxi coupons, and the operation of the Veronica B. Smith Senior Center in Brighton. Additionally, we are working across city departments and with partner organizations and residents to create the system changes that are necessary to make Boston age and dementia friendly. We've been working hard to meet the needs of the community. Over the past couple of years, we've reorganized our team to target some areas of need that were raised during our age-friendly needs assessment process. We built and expanded our age and dementia-friendly team. We now have a team of 3 working to coordinate the implementation of our 75-step age-friendly action plan. In June, we'll be starting our 3rd year of action plan implementation. Some highlights this year include age and dementia-friendly training for front-facing city staff, completing the pilot stages of an age and dementia-friendly business certification program, and we're in the planning stages of an event highlighting skill building and connection with area businesses for older adults searching for paid employment. We doubled the size of our outreach and engagement team from 2 people to 4 people to expand the amount of events and programming happening throughout Boston neighborhoods. We are targeting gap areas identified through our age-friendly work and working with partners to bring new programs to the community, like more memory cafes, for people with dementia and their caregivers, and then Tai Chi and other healthy aging programmings, and we'll have some arts and culture programming rolling out as well. These programs are designed to engage and to empower older adults and make sure that people are connected in the community. Due to increasing needs and complexity, we built and expanded a housing unit primarily through increases in external council on aging funds. This is such a big area of need. We were very, very grateful for the city FY19 investment in this work, adding a 5th person to our housing team. Additionally, in FY19, we had a city investment of $300,000 to support Meals on Wheels for older adults. And you'll see this money in the FY20 budget as well. This money has been critically important to the continued operation of this program in Boston, and so we're very grateful for those dollars. We're also very glad for the combined investment of both the city and MassDOT in new scheduling software for the Age-Strong shuttle that will modernize our shuttle operations, allowing for a better shuttle experience both for our riders and also for our team members. And our staff will be going through training on the new software towards the end of May, so we're really excited for that implementation. And you might have noticed our new name, the Age Strong Commission. We wanted a new name that matched the vibrancy of older adults that we work with, so we rebranded ourselves to better fit who we are and who we serve. It's a name that we believe helps evolve the narrative about what it means to age in Boston. Changing the negative stereotypes around aging is an important part of our work, and you'll continue to see that theme in everything we do, including at our events and in our monthly magazine, Seniority Magazine. Also in FY19, through a grant from the Mass Councils on Aging as part of a federal grant from the Administration for Community Living, we started a new respite program. We are now recruiting and training volunteers to provide respite services for caregivers of people with dementia. These passionate, competent volunteers are giving caregivers some precious time where they don't have to worry about their loved ones, to take a break, do some errands, or simply have a cup of tea with friends. We have to continue to take steps to support caregivers and people with dementia. We've invested this year in staff training. Our entire team participated in a full-day diversity training and a half-day training focused on LGBT older adults and better serving that population. In addition, we continue to support our team members to participate in the online Foundations in Aging and Disability Certificate Program through the Center for Aging and Disability Research and Education at BU. Finally, FY19 marked our first year as part of the Health and Human Services Cabinet under Chief Marty Martinez. It's been a great experience to be part of the team, and we're with Veteran Services as well. This year, through the leadership of HHS, we participated in a collective impact planning process to develop shared goals, and we'll be working together as a team and in collaboration with D&D to move the needle on housing stability, something that impacts all of the people that we serve in the cabinet. We're excited to move forward over the next year and to continue meeting community needs. This work will be enhanced by a $100,000 investment in the FY20 budget that's been proposed, focused on senior programming. Boston is one of the few cities without a city-run network of senior centers. And but that being said, we have a very rich array of programs that seniors can access and get involved in. The city operates 4 locations with ongoing senior programming through our office in BCYF. And through our Older Americans Act funding, we support 11 more programming locations throughout the city, throughout city neighborhoods. The $100,000 investment will allow us to bring these sites and site directors together into a learning network. The money will provide essential training, the sharing of best practices, one-on-one technical assistance, and provide some programming support so that we can enhance the work that we're doing in this area. Thank you for your investment in older adults and for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much, Emily, and thank you for the kind words. And as one of the 105,000 now, I just want to say I really appreciate the great work you've done with this department. And we went back, as you said, several years before that, and I want to thank you as well for all the work with Veronica Smith in the Brighton area. Let me recognize Councilor Ed Flynn for any questions you have.
Thank you, Commissioner, and to your team. We see your team in all of the neighborhoods consistently, engaging our seniors, providing great services, providing great guidance. And what I always liked about your team is, your team may have a little booth somewhere at an event, but they're always walking around engaging people that don't come up to them. So the outreach that your staff is doing at various events is exceptional. I noticed that frequently when I see them. So I just wanted to pass that along to you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Commissioner, I see a lot of seniors, they're caring for their grandchildren now.
Sure.
And as we change the name from the Elderly Commission to Age Strong, it also reflects the role of our seniors that are really playing a critical role for their families in raising children. But what can we do to help our seniors that are caring for grandchildren? Some of them might be special needs children as well, but it often can be a stressful time for our seniors when they're caring for little children as well. But any thoughts about that type of subject?
Sure. So that's a really important area, and that's why we actually, as part of our Older Americans Act funding, we have a pot of money that goes to caregiver services, and we're allowed to spend up to 10% of that pot of money on services supporting grandparents raising grandchildren. And so we actually use the full 10% here in Boston to support a program that's run by MSPCC. That supports grandparents raising grandchildren. They are experts in this area. They provide support groups across the city. They also can help guide and support grandparents who are new to this area. Because it's Older Americans Act funding, it's funding that supports grandparents who are over the age of 60. So that's the population that we're able to target with those dollars.
Thank you. And my final question, Commissioner, is with the uncertainty of the federal government and, the possibility that it could be shut down again sometime, are there programs that you supervise or you manage that could be impacted if there is a federal government shutdown and those funds from the federal government does not get into the City of Boston Treasury? It's a case I worked on with Commissioner Santiago. If there's a federal government shutdown, it does impact veterans, but if there is a federal government shutdown, what impact would it have on your department?
Yeah, I mean, so if there was a government shutdown that was long enough that budget funds weren't kind of implemented, the last shutdown didn't impact us because we already were funded and we were okay. But if there was one long enough that actually impacted the funding, we would lose over half of our funding.
Okay.
So that would be problematic for us. That would be a huge loss. I mean, I'm hopeful it doesn't come to that, right? The Older Americans Act has been level funded at the federal government for a long, long time. We were actually looking back at numbers from 2000, and we are getting less money now than we were getting then. So the funds certainly haven't increased, but they are a significant portion of our budget, and they fund everything from some of our team downstairs and the work that we do internally here at the Commission to the Meals on Wheels, the congregate meal sites, the caregiver services, the legal services, a lot of the programming. I mean, they just fund a wide breadth of things here in Boston.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to your dedicated and professional staff, and we're proud of the outstanding work they do for the residents of Boston.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Just to follow up on the Older Americans Act, that needs to be reauthorized every so often. Do you know where that is right now?
Yep, so it needs to be reauthorized right now.
Oh, okay.
And so I actually was down with IGR down in Washington, D.C. a couple of months ago, talking to our congressional delegation about the Older Americans Act and funding and reauthorization. I think they're looking to try to get it reauthorized sometime around September, October of this year.
Great. And did they express any concern about the current climate down in Washington of getting things done?
I don't, it didn't sound like people thought there would be a challenge with reauthorization of the act.
No, that's great.
So that's good.
Great, thank you. Councilor Sabi George.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both for being here today. Last year, my office did some work around elder scamming.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you have any information to share on either an uptick or an improvement in reports of financial scamming or other types of scams our older adults in Boston are facing.
Sure, and we appreciate your work around that issue, Counselor. I know you were out talking to a number of groups in the city. So our office is probably not the main place that people are reporting scams. So I don't know that we've seen much of a change there based on what we were seeing before. I think people are more likely to go to the police department and report scams or reporting them to the Attorney General's office. I will say that scams are a huge issue, and we appreciate your focus on it. A couple of things to report. We have, as part of our Area Agency on Aging work, we have various task forces that have met over the years. And we ended up ending one of our longstanding task forces, our Health and Long-Term Care Task Force, because participants in that really wanted to shift to focus more on scams, abuse, neglect around those areas. And so we have a new task force that will be focused on that work, on trying to bring parties together, because so many different people are working on it. We really need to figure out how we all work as a team so that we're providing a consistent message. We also actually are very happy. We just got some funding through, and I'm not going to remember exactly their name, but it's a network of credit unions, and we can get you the exact name. They just gave us $10,000 to be addressing scams, so we are now putting together a proposal in terms of what we would do with those dollars. But a really important area, and I certainly would invite you and your team to be part of this task force as it moves forward and develops ideas for addressing the issue.
That would be great. I think that's the Massachusetts Association of Credit Unions.
Yes, that sounds
And their
right.
work, because they were very supportive
Yes.
of our effort around the elder scamming. And
Yes,
part of their focus is also, the credit unions, is the need for renewed financial literacy. And
Yes.
I talk a lot about that when we think about our students and our high school students in particular. But we do recognize as technology changes, as the way that we pay bills changes, as the way that we interact with people either through technology or through smartphones, that our older residents could use some refreshers when it comes to financial literacy, because the way that we interact financially is very different. Has your office thought
agree.
at all about that, or is that a
Ye-
topic at all in any sort of work?
Yeah, so we are thinking about how we might combine some of that with the scams topic, because financial literacy and scams kind of go hand in hand. And we're still kind of working through what that might look like. I recently saw a great multi-session class that was put out by that Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Money Smart for Older Adults, that I really like the look of. And so just trying to think about, is that the way to go to be implementing this across the city? How would we do that? Would we go through trained volunteers? Would we try and get staff to do it? So right now, in the midst of kind of figuring out all of those different things. But I think financial literacy throughout the lifetime is really important to focus on. And then on the technology piece, we've had some conversations with AT&T recently, who's been a great partner to us, about going out with them throughout the community and having them teach something focused on scams, but really about technology, like being safe on your iPhone, on your cell phone, being safe on your laptop, those types of things. So looking forward to rolling that out over the next year as well.
That's great, and I imagine that many of the banks in the city of Boston would be interested in partnering too, because they spend a lot of their own time and their financial resources when our residents do get scammed. So thank you for that, and thank you for your focus and your work.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley, and we've been joined by Councilor Frank Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, good afternoon, Commissioner and Deputy.
Thank you.
And thank you, Deputy, for making it here after a long flight. You look no worse for the wear. Commissioner, love the work you do. We work very, very closely, particularly in my district. One of the things that I know many of my seniors really value is the taxi coupons. One of your staff will come out after a community meeting or a monthly residents meeting and give taxi coupons. Has there been any outreach to some of the TNCs or the ride shares about doing discounted senior rates, or maybe help educate some seniors on how to use sort of the apps that may not know how to use that? Has there been any conversations on that?
Yeah, so we really haven't dug into that too much. A number of other councils on aging are starting to do some of that work.
Yeah.
Across the state. We have a program downstairs that we started maybe 2 years ago as part of our RSVP program. We actually have some RSVP volunteers, I think, in the room.
Great.
Along with, I should just say, along with some of our Civic Academy members who are here watching today, and some of the mayor's senior advisory council members who are here as well, who are meeting upstairs before this.
Oh, that's great.
But we, now I've lost my train of thought. Okay. So we haven't delved too much into the ride shares, but our Bus Buddies program is a travel training program. So we work with MassDOT to train volunteers who can then help people who either haven't taken public transportation in a long time or are new to public transportation, help them understand how to navigate public transportation, read the maps, learn about safety, all of that. We're thinking about adding on to that program how to use Lyft and Uber and the apps and things like that. So that's kind of as far as we've gotten so far, but it's on our radar.
Good. Well,
I
think that's helpful to hear, and I'd suggest you take it one step farther. See if there's any opportunity for discounted rates for seniors. The way it could be a limited number a month, similar to the taxi coupons, but I think that there could be a great synergy there that the TNCs would jump all over. So, thank you for that, and thank you to our folks from the Senior Civics Academy. That was a great afternoon we had several weeks ago, and the mayor of Stockholm, Sweden, crashed and joined our little Q&A. It was great. All right, so there's an increase in the operations budget, about 6%, 6.2%. Is that in permanent employees line has been increased by 109,000? Is that how many positions is that?
That's primarily step increases and contractual obligations, as Francis says.
So no new employees or no number of employees
on our operating.
How many employees do you have total on your team?
We have a total of 76 employees.
76, great. There's been a slight increase in contracted services as well. Is that just cost goes up?
Sure. So some of that reflects, and Francis, feel free to jump in. Some of that reflects a need to pay more for the buses that transport to our events. And some of the other piece of that you'll see, because we've increased our programming across the city, we have some additional costs associated with that are transportation and food related, and some equipment for some of the programs that we're running. So for example, we're getting yoga mats.
Great.
To do some yoga Lattes work.
Yoga Lattes.
Yeah.
Pilates and yoga.
Exactly.
I like it. So some of that's fuel costs, some of that's having more buses, some of that's sort of, as you said, equipment.
Is there anything else you want to add, Francis?
No, that's.
Okay.
Okay. And then, can you talk a little bit about partnership with some of our great nonprofits like Ethos or Age Well West Roxbury in ways that, we've worked well together as a city and the
gosh,
nonprofits?
Sure. So as I said before, we can't do our work without the nonprofits. We support 23 nonprofit organizations through our Older Americans Act funds to provide a whole array of services. Some of those are kind of located out in the neighborhoods like Ethos, or they're serving specific cultural populations like Chinese Golden Age Center or La Alianza Hispana. We support MAB, Mass Association for the Blind, to do some work with folks that are legally blind and older in Boston, as well as Deaf Inc., to do work with our population that's hard of hearing or deaf. Using our relationships and partnerships with a broader aging service network in Boston, being able to provide them with Older Americans Act dollars to work on those programs, but also being able to refer back and forth and just work collaboratively together is essential. And then you mentioned Ethos, our 3 ASAPs, Ethos, Central Boston Elder Services, and Boston Senior Home Care. We actually are part of the same network through the Elder Services Department at the state. So we're all on the same data system. We're able to see when somebody is getting services from each other so that we can call and we can coordinate care in a better way.
Great. And briefly, and then I'll ask Chief Dillon to also chime in on this, but can you talk a little bit about a great success story from all of our advocacy in terms of the Forbes building in Jamaica Plain?
Oh, I'm not sure. Did we keep that affordable?
We kept that affordable.
See all the things I'm learning in this hearing, Counselor? I hadn't heard that update.
Okay.
So I'm thrilled to hear it. I know that we were really concerned about that building, and I actually, interestingly enough, just asked for an update on it 2 days ago.
Well, there
So
you
thank
go.
for
I've given
that.
it to you. It's been terrific work. Thank you for your advocacy. Obviously, Chief Dillon, my team, and I were involved in the weeds, and it's an inspiring use
It is
senior
inspiring
building that there was a lot of concern that we'd see dozens, if not hundreds, of seniors who could be at risk of losing, and that's going to be protected. So
That is fantastic news,
Yep.
and we are really, really grateful to Chief Dillon and her office. They're working on a number of
Yep.
inspiring use. I mean, that's a real challenge
Yep.
here in Boston, and they've been great working on that and helping to preserve some of those buildings. We need
Absolutely.
that housing.
Absolutely. And I'll just say in closing, Mr. Chairman, when you are leaving us after a wonderful career, I will be the longest-serving city councilor. And Commissioner, I believe you're the longest-serving commissioner.
No.
You're probably up there, I would think
my
so.
God.
I think you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Longest continuously serving.
which is an important distinction, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for noting
Do
that.
we both
So,
have 8 years under our belt, Counselor? That's a lot of
believe it or not, I've got
experience.
9.
Oh, my gosh.
I'll have 9 in November. So yeah, and yet we're still in our mid-20s. So how does that work? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner and team.
Counselor Campbell.
And thank you, Councilor Siomo, and I apologize the simultaneous meetings happening here, but I also want to thank a lot of folks came out to testify and offer, I'm sure, their thanks and as well as what they think we could always be doing better. But I appreciate both of you for the work that you do on behalf of our seniors. And I know that many of my questions were asked. I did have, one of my biggest questions was related to transportation, getting our seniors to events, whether down here, in districts, in the community, out of their neighborhood. I know we work with the RIDE and are trying to think of creative ways, but it is a big concern. And so it was good to see this increase in the budget for the transportation line item.
Well, yeah.
But if you could talk, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish your question? I'm sorry
I said
for
if you could talk a little bit
interrupting.
more about that. I mean, it's not as large as
Sure.
we would have liked.
Yeah, so that's not actually an increase in the amount of transportation. Our transportation costs are going up. We typically use school buses to transport to events, but we have been having a lot of trouble with school bus availability with our school bus contracts for weekday events because of the how late they're dropping off at school and how early they're picking up. And this is not the school buses that transport buses from public schools. It's another group. So we're going to have to move towards using more of kind of the concierge buses that we have to pay more money for. Every year we go out to bid for transportation, but we know that school bus availability is an increasing issue for us.
So if changing from that mode of transportation to the other bus styles, is that going to cost you more?
Yes.
And what does that mean if this budget isn't going up to cover those additional costs?
This budget is going, that increase that you see reflected is the increased cost that we would need to pay to use a different kind of bus.
But it's not expanding the number of buses available?
It's not expanding the number, the amount of transportation.
And what would that take? I mean, given the level of calls and concerns that you guys get around transportation or not having adequate transportation, what would it take budgetary-wise on our end to be able to meet some more of those needs?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure that we've really looked at those numbers. One thing that I will say with our changes in, so I'm not sure if you heard, but we are implementing new scheduling software for our Age Strong shuttle. So that was an investment the city made last year, as well as MassDOT. And that implementation we hope will be complete by the end of June. We need to then kind of see how the new software works, but our hope is that by investing in this new software, it will allow us to be more efficient in the way that we're providing rides, and that then we can kind of increase the amount of rides that we're doing to locations other than medical appointments. So that may be an opportunity, but we need to kind of see how that plays out with the new software and folks getting used to it and then seeing how it works for us.
Okay.
And then in terms of kind of what we would need to be, for example, hiring buses for other types of large events. In the past, we used to be able to provide more bus transportation, but for a long time, we've really just focused on the events that the Age Strong Commission provides based on kind of, some long time ago budget decreases that we had. But I will say the cost of one bus for an event is $600-ish?
Yes.
About $600. And so that's one busload of people going to an event. So that, just to give you a little bit of an idea, it would depend on how many additional events we wanted to do and how we wanted, how we could fund that.
This is helpful. I mean, I will keep pushing. I mean, I know you guys are for that budget to increase, because it really is a big concern in trying to get our seniors outside of our district, and particularly those seniors, and you know this, who are living in senior living, where it's just a senior population, who want to get out of a senior building and exposed to other events, who may not have as much flexibility as our seniors who live in community or live on their own. So I'll keep pushing that. Many of my questions related to senior housing, I'll keep for Chief Dillon, given her work. I'm just curious how often your department, your division, works with Chief Dillon around housing concerns, types of housing for our seniors. One of the things that have been coming up recently is this idea of intergenerational housing, seniors who don't want to just live amongst folks in the same age bracket. But what does it mean to have a younger population sharing the same space and having appropriate amenities? I mean, we know there are small developers doing that in different spaces across the city, which is exciting. So I'm curious how much you're involved in the conversations at D&D with respect to housing.
Sure, we work really closely with Chief Dillon and her team. They're fantastic over there. We actually, this year, based on a budget investment that was made last year in D&D's technology budget, we were able to get on the same data system with them for some of their work through the Boston Home Center. So we're able to know when they're working on a case, when we're getting the same calls, and really do some collaborative work together. Also, we've worked really closely with Chief Dillon and her team around kind of just strategizing around senior housing in Boston. I think that, we have a very diverse group of folks in the community, and what we want to see in terms of housing for people is an array of housing options, because you're right, some people will choose to live in the senior-only building. Some people will choose to live in intergenerational housing. Some people want to stay in their home and have some modifications made. And so we're working on all of those fronts to make sure that we have enough options for people so that they can kind of age as they want to in the city. We also have been doing a lot of thinking lately through some of our age-friendly work with Chief Dillon and her team around universal design and the idea of creating housing that's people are meant to age in. We're all aging in our housing, and so we really should create it that way so that we can age well within the spaces that we live. So we've been doing some thinking around that as well. There's, housing is huge, and it's great to have a collaborator like Chief Dillon.
No, this is very helpful, and many of my questions for Chief Dillon will, of course, be about just the creation of more senior housing for our seniors, meeting the goals in our housing plan, specifically for our seniors, as well as our veterans, which we talked about earlier, and as many resources poured into that. And it's great with the CPA that you mentioned. Really happy when there are projects that come before us with respect to CPA for senior housing, because it's a major issue. And then other programs that keep seniors in their homes, senior repair programs, we'll be having conversations with as well. How we strengthen that, how we expand it so more seniors can participate and can stay in their home. I guess my last sort of question, some of the others have already been asked and answered, is what does outreach look like? There's some great things you're doing here. Once a month on Friday, some seniors are participating, but we sometimes talk to some seniors who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sure.
What does outreach look like to our seniors for those type of programs? And then my second follow-up question is, and I have been talking about this since I joined the council on day one, when there are incidents of violence in the community, obviously the police show up, the Health Commission, trauma teams, Councilor Baker, just unfortunate shooting in his district, emergency meeting last night. I always think about, because your department tends to touch those seniors, not just in a reactionary time or an awful time, but in happy moments, what role your department plays in outreach to seniors after some horrific events that happen in their community. So that's a sort of twofold question.
Sure. And I'll just, if I can add one thing to the housing before I answer that, an incredibly important partner for us in senior housing is the federal government, and that's why you haven't seen as much development because of the lack of funding for the 202 program, the senior housing program. This year, the federal government funded a small increase funded for the first time in like 6 years, some capital funds. So we would love to see that continue.
Thank you.
In terms of outreach, we focus all the time on outreach. We do so many programs, and we really want to make sure that we're meeting people and reaching people in the community. We have about half of our older adults who are renters, and about half of them who are homeowners. We have a lot of people who live in senior buildings. We have a lot of folks living in their own home. And we don't have a mailing list in the city. We don't have a list of our older homeowners or of our older adults. So we do outreach in all different ways. So we reach out to the senior buildings. We reach out to the senior groups and centers. There's probably 50, 75 different senior groups out there that are meeting in buildings and other locations. So we reach out through those basic networks. We reach out through our community partners to get the word out about things. We also, we've started try to do some more creative outreach to reach people we're not typically reaching. So things like going into neighborhoods and flyering in all different locations that we think people will be going. Things like going to farmers markets or other places that we think we might find older adults that we wouldn't typically be an outreach place for us. So we're trying to be really creative about it, but I wouldn't say that we have found the perfect solution. You know, there's 105,000 people. About 20% of those folks speak little to no English, speak a whole range of different languages. So there's lots of different ways and considerations you have to think about with outreach. But it's something we work on daily in my office.
Yeah, I mean, just want to offer, one of the things, we do in our district, we have, our senior ambassadors. You know Cheryl from my team, of course, and some of our senior ambassadors are here, and their goal is to try to be intentional, even connecting with folks on their street or in their little neighborhood. There are eyes and ears on the ground.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what would it mean to empower those folks, stipend some folks to do some of that outreach, stipend some of our seniors in some way? I'm just sort of thinking outside the box, because you do have a willingness. Many of our elders actually run some of the civic associations. Those are willing, and they have the time during the day, and that's why some are here, obviously, or the evening, that for that matter too, to do some of that outreach in their neighborhoods, on their streets. And it's a way to not just applaud them, but to compensate them for some time. So we can continue that offline. I know my time is, I think, I was waiting for a buzzer. I don't think it didn't happen.
And I should have.
I was waiting for a buzzer, and I don't know if people are doing public testimony or not, but I can follow up with respect to some other questions offline, but I want to think more creatively with you about outreach. And then some of these other questions I'll save for Chief Dillon or other relevant departments.
Okay, I think that senior ambassador idea is a great idea. That's how we actually engage people around our events, is we have kind of senior leaders in the community who help us organize. One of the ways we engage people, so love to talk about that
I guess my last
further.
question is just on the public safety side.
Yep.
So you don't have a list, so you're not necessarily reaching out to folks after a shooting or stabbing. That's more of the trauma team.
That's more the trauma team, but we've talked in the HHS cabinet about getting us more involved and engaged in some of that work.
And I think it's important because there's folks that are likely to respond better to you guys than they would some of these other folks who are either new to them or frankly are only calling them after something serious. And it's not a warm connection or even a warm referral for that matter. So I look forward to continuing that conversation too.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councilor Sioma.
Thank you. And I have to jump to an appointment, so I'm going to hand the gavel off to Councilor Flynn, and just want to wrap my time up with saying thanks again for all the great and important work you do. And Francis, I hope you didn't cut that trip short to come to this hearing. That's all I want to hear.
We came at the right time.
Okay. All right, very good. Thanks
Thank you,
again. And Councilor Baker has a line of questioning.
Yeah, before you leave, I just want to recognize I have 10 winners from the LOLEC Leadership Society. They're here from my former alma mater, PJP. I went to St. Margaret's, now PJP. 10 young people here. And the leadership recognizes leadership qualities and commitment to helping others. So I just want to recognize them. From my alma mater, St. Margaret's, I wasn't awarded any leadership scholarships when I was there, but, so, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a quick round of questioning. President Campbell talked a bit about our reach out, how are we getting, and I find that we can find the people in the homes, whether if it's Kit Clark or Keystone or Pazusco, we can find those people. Much more difficult to connect on seniors that are in their homes.
Yes.
I've literally identified people in my district and sent your people out there to check on them. So, but are we still using the local papers? Because I know I've heard about, maybe less ads in the paper and more Twitter sort of online presence, which I think and I don't know what your department's doing, but are we still using the Dorchester Reporter, the Bay State Banner, and are we still using those to get information out there?
Sure. So what I will say is those are a really good way to get information out. We haven't had there hasn't been a large part of our budget that's been able to support that type of advertising. But it's a great idea. We know that from our age-friendly work the older adults get their information in lots of different ways, but there are a lot of people that are still reading their community papers.
Yeah.
And there also are a lot of people that are getting information from television. We try to diversify how we do our communications work. And I will say, communications came up as kind of one of the most important findings when we went out and talked to the community around age-friendly. And since then, we've invested in a communications director, which is a position we didn't have before. We've built a communications team of 3 people. And we've created our first ever communications plan for the commission. And so we just added our 3rd team member 2 weeks ago. And we look forward to really thinking more strategically how we reach people and how we get the word out. But community papers, I would highly recommend.
You had said a little earlier that you don't have a comprehensive list of seniors living in their homes, so will that be one of the duties of this communications director?
I'm not sure how that person would get a list. So we've been working with the city, with Do It, and with some other organizations, with some other city departments to try to figure out how to better target people in their homes. And I don't know that we, as of yet, have a great solution to that. So the city doesn't have a lot of databases except elections.
Yeah. And can we not use those lists?
That has addresses and
Ages.
So
Can we not use those lists?
We can use the elections list. We do have the elections list. We don't have, and we probably have on that elections list maybe 50,000 of the 105,000 people over 60 in Boston. What we don't have is we haven't we haven't done mass mailings to groups of people like that, so we haven't had the mailing budget for that.
Yeah, so is that something that would be in the plan, a mass mailing, or are you?
So I think
These are all ideas that are being hashed out
yeah,
now?
I mean, I think these are all, we in our plan, we've kind of created a list of all of the different types of communication that we could do, and kind of the amount of effort that would take, because obviously we only have so much capacity, and the amount of funds that would take, because everyone has to work within their budget. And so we're really looking at what can we do that are kind of big target, big ticket ways to reach people. But we have to outreach on so many different things. I mean, you wouldn't believe across all of the domains of age-friendly, communication came up. So around transportation, around economic security, around everything.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to communicate, and the best way to do that, I think we're still trying to figure out. Appreciate any ideas that you have.
And thank you, Emily. So you also talked about availability, I don't know if it's programs through D&D, availability to retrofit, so people are retrofit housing so people can stay in their homes. Is that D&D programs?
Yeah, so I think I talked about modification to homes,
Yeah.
and depending on what the modifications are, that can sometimes be fit into the senior home repair budget. It depends on what the modifications are and how much they cost and things like that. There are other home modification programs that people can access. I believe there's one through Mass Rehab that can help to pay for a ramp or different things like that.
So would your department be that one-stop call, and the person on your end of the line knows all that information and will give it to a senior that needs help in their home?
Exactly. So my office provides, has our 8 advocates that provide information and referral services. So people can call our office really about anything having to do with aging or navigating city departments, and we will help to get them to the right place.
Okay, and you mentioned 202 program. Is that just what they call the federal housing money for senior housing?
Exactly, yes.
And you said they've given us some in the last year?
No, so what I said, so that program used to fund a lot of, or used to help to fund a lot of senior housing buildings in Boston. The capital construction, the money for new capital construction for that fund disappeared quite a long time ago under the Obama administration.
Yeah.
this year, for the first time in the federal budget, there is some new capital construction dollars that were added. They're very small. It's like $110 million for the entire country. And there's a competition right now where people can put in applications for those dollars.
Yeah, and just a comment for you to keep your eye on. One of the things that I advocate for, and I have been my entire time on the council, is to start thinking about our public spaces differently. One thing that helped my parents as they age was the activity that was around them, being involved in a community. So we, through my office, have advocated for senior housing above libraries. We have multiple libraries being talked about now and in design phase, and Fields Corner, possibly Upham's Corner. I think we're actually going to talk about senior housing above libraries. I think it'll be a great thing if we're able to do that.
That's exciting.
And my last question, we rebranded your department.
Yes.
Any reason why? Is it going well?
Sure. So we rebranded because we want to better reflect who we are and who we serve. So essentially, we serve people from the ages of 55 to 105, and some people really connected with the word elderly, but a lot of our constituents didn't.
Yeah.
And so we did a couple of things. We looked at some new information that was put out called Reframing Aging by the Frameworks Institute, looking at how we can change the language around aging, because aging is viewed very negatively in the United States, and we need to change that into a positive conversation.
Yep.
Aging is, a part of everyday life, and older adults contribute a lot. They're not a burden to society.
Yeah, I think that's one issue that I would criticize our society on, is we don't respect our elders. The knowledge is all in their mind. When you've lived it, you know it.
Right, so we wanted to move to a more positive frame for getting older. And then we actually talked to our constituents. We asked people, we had a list of words, and we asked folks to let us know kind of what words resonated with them. And you won't be surprised that strong and experienced came out on the top. And so, which is exactly who the people are that we work with. And so that's how Age Strong was born.
So, and this is my last sort of statement, 55 to 105?
Pretty much, yeah.
So in 3 years, I'm calling your department for all my needs?
So our volunteer programs start at age 55. Actually, our age-friendly work looked at folks from age 50 to 50 and up.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. And at this time, I would like to ask if there's anyone in the audience that has signed up and would like to offer testimony, or if you haven't signed up and you would like to offer testimony, you're more than welcome to come down to the podium on the left-hand side and provide your comments. Maybe if you're able to make your comments for 2 to 3 minutes would be appropriate. And for the record, anyone that is testifying, could you please state your name and your neighborhood as well? Yes, sir.
My name is Carl Beatty. I'm the Executive Director of Rounding the Bases. Rounding the Bases is one of the sites for the RSVP. We've been affiliated with the Age Strong Commission for about 5 years. We have 2 MOUs in effect, Senior Companion Program, Food Delivery Program. RSVP volunteers have served in Tech Goes Home computer classes since 2014. My wife and I both are REST volunteers for the new program. The only thing that I find that I don't know if you're familiar with ESAC, if that's one of your service providers, ESAC?
It's not one of ours, but you mean for senior home repair?
Yes.
That's through the Department of Neighborhood Development, but you can go ahead.
That program is not working. complete applications for home repairs for seniors. Number one, they don't go out to visit the seniors, so they have no idea of the total needs. We have one senior that they went and they filled out, completed an application for, a city application for a walk-in tub. The contractor came in and he said the bathroom wasn't large enough. He put in a walk-in shower. He didn't bolt the seat into the studs in the wall. The client sat on the seat came loose. She fell, hurt herself. We have a walk-in tub. Our bathroom was smaller than hers. So the contractor didn't know what he was doing. Somebody signed off on that job. And when I went back to ESAC, we signed an MOU in December with them to do, as a contractor, to them to go out and said, one, you need to go out and see these people. No, we're not going to do that. This person, somebody signed off on this. You need to make this right for this. We can't do that. And they want their client to take another loan to correct the problem that they should have seen. There's a number of their clients that have applied to the state program that were getting denied because the children were on the deed. Once again, nobody went to see these people. I had one lady that applied for a ramp, when I went to visit her, I found a woman that was 300 plus pounds that had been beat with a tire iron, and one complete side of her body was shut down. I said, well, if you don't mind me, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. I said, how do you make out getting in and out of the tub? I haven't been in the tub in 3 months. You only know this if you go to visit these people. This is not a job that you can do sitting in your office. I completed her application. She had been denied because her son was on the deed. We did our application, submitted it to the state, and it was approved. It was approved. So how can you have somebody doing these applications that don't even know the requirements? The people that we're putting through now, the applications that are being approved were applications that were denied by ESAC.
Well, thank you. Thank you, sir. And we appreciate your comments, and you have valid points, and maybe someone might be able to follow up with them.
Yeah, and I should just add, I misspoke before. We do have a contract with ESAC. We contribute some to the senior home repair. The majority of it is paid through D&D. The state program, I think, that's being referenced is a separate program. The city has its own rules and regulations around senior home repair, and you're right, if the house is not in the name of the older adult or is in a trust, you can't access senior home repair services. But I'm happy to reach out to ESAC and talk to them over there. They're, I think that a lot of people are being served well by them in the community. But I understand that there's some challenges, and we'd be happy to talk to ESAC and work with Carl and the community members around that.
Thank you, Commissioner. And is there anyone else that would like to offer brief testimony before we adjourn? Hearing none. Docket number 0622-0625 FY20 budget for Boston Vets and Age Strong Commission is now adjourned. Thank you.